Welcome to my channel. Before we begin, imagine waking up one morning and realizing that every success, every failure, every fear, and every dream in your life was secretly created by one thing you have been carrying inside your head since childhood. Imagine discovering that the invisible voice speaking to you every day has been deciding your future without your permission. What if the greatest enemy you have ever fought was not the world, not other people, not bad luck, but your own thoughts? And what if, in the next few minutes, you discovered a secret powerful enough to completely change the direction of your life? Stay with me until the end, because the journey you are about to hear transformed an ordinary man into someone who finally understood the true power of the human mind. This is the story of Noah, a young man who spent most of his life believing that success belonged to other people. He believed that confident people were born different, that happiness belonged to the lucky, and that his own future had already been decided. Every morning, Noah woke up with the same thoughts repeating inside his mind. I am not talented enough. I will never become successful. Nothing in my life will change. He repeated these words so many times that they became part of his identity. He stopped taking risks, stopped trying new things, and slowly accepted an ordinary life. That was the first turning point of his journey, although he did not realize it yet. One evening, after another disappointing day at work, Noah sat alone on a park bench, watching people walk past him. Some were laughing, some were talking about their dreams, and some were making plans for the future. Noah lowered his head and whispered, "Why does everyone else seem to move forward while I stay in the same place?" At that moment, an old man sitting beside him suddenly spoke. Because most people never realize that the prison they live in exists only inside their minds. Noah looked up in surprise. The stranger smiled and handed him a small notebook before standing and walking away into the darkness. On the first page, only one sentence was written: "Your thoughts are building the life you will live tomorrow." Those words became the second turning point. That night, Noah could not sleep. He kept reading the sentence again and again. For the first time in years, he began to question the stories he had been telling himself. The next morning, he opened the notebook again and found another message. Watch your thoughts for one day and discover who is truly controlling your life. Noah accepted the challenge. Throughout the day, he paid attention to every thought inside his head. He noticed how often he criticized himself, how quickly he expected failure, and how easily he imagined the worst possible outcome. By evening, he was shocked. It felt as if he had been carrying around an invisible enemy his entire life. That realization became the third turning point. Determined to change, Noah made a decision. Every time a negative thought appeared, he would replace it with a stronger one. When his mind said, "You can't do this," he answered, "I can learn." When fear whispered, "You will fail," he replied, "Failure will teach me." At first, it felt strange and unnatural, but he continued anyway. Days passed, and something unexpected happened. His energy began to change. He started speaking with more confidence and smiling more often. That was the fourth turning point. A few weeks later, Noah found another message hidden in the notebook. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant today will grow tomorrow. He finally understood. For years, he had been planting seeds of doubt, fear, and excuses. Now, for the first time, he was planting hope, courage, and possibility. Excited by this discovery, Noah began waking up early every morning. He spent 10 minutes writing positive thoughts and 10 minutes imagining the future he wanted. He pictured himself becoming stronger, wiser, and more confident. That simple habit became the fifth turning point of his journey. But life was not ready to make things easy for him. One afternoon, Noah shared his new mindset with some friends, hoping they would support him. Instead, they laughed. "You really think positive thinking will change your life?" one of them asked. Their words hit him like a storm. For a moment, the old Noah wanted to give up and return to his old habits. Yet, deep inside, another voice had started growing stronger, a voice that whispered, "Keep going." Without realizing it, Noah was standing at the edge of the sixth turning point, a decision that would determine whether he returned to his old life or continued toward a completely new future. The next morning, Noah woke up earlier than usual, but his mind was full of questions. The laughter of his friends still echoed inside his head. Part of him wanted to forget everything and return to the comfortable life he had always known. After all, changing the way you think is not easy when everyone around you believes you will never change. But as he looked at the notebook lying on his desk, he remembered the strange sentence written on its first page. Your thoughts are building the life you will live tomorrow. For a long time, Noah sat in silence, staring out the window as the sun slowly rose above the city. Then he made a choice. He would continue, even if nobody believed in him. That decision became the seventh turning point of his journey. Later that day, Noah opened the notebook again and discovered another message. Your mind believes what you repeat. At first, the sentence seemed simple, but the more he thought about it, the more powerful it became. Noah realized that for years he had repeated the same negative words to himself. Every failure had strengthened the belief that he was weak. Every mistake had convinced him that success belonged to other people. He suddenly understood that his mind was like a machine, accepting every message he gave it. If he continued repeating fear, he would create fear. If he repeated confidence, he would create confidence. That understanding became the eighth turning point. From that day forward, Noah created a new habit. Every morning, he stood in front of the mirror and spoke to himself. I am improving every day. I am stronger than my fears. I can learn anything with patience and effort. The first few days felt uncomfortable. He even laughed at himself. But after several weeks, something changed. The words no longer felt fake. They started to feel real. His confidence slowly grew, not because his life had changed overnight, but because his thoughts had begun to change. One afternoon, Noah faced a challenge that would test everything he had learned. His manager asked him to present an idea in front of the entire office. The old Noah would have immediately refused. Fear would have controlled him. His mind would have filled with images of failure and embarrassment. But this time, something was different. He closed his eyes and remembered the sentences he had repeated every morning. He took a deep breath and accepted the challenge. Standing in front of dozens of people, his hands shook and his heart raced, but he continued speaking. When he finished, the room became silent for a moment before people began to applaud. Noah could hardly believe it. That moment became the ninth turning point of his journey. For the first time in his life, he understood that courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was taking action despite fear. That evening, Noah walked home with a smile on his face. But another lesson was waiting for him. Inside the notebook, he found a new message. What you focus on grows. Noah thought about the sentence for hours. He realized that all his life, he had focused only on problems. He focused on his weaknesses, his failures, and his mistakes. He rarely noticed his progress, his strengths, or the opportunities around him. The next day, he decided to conduct a simple experiment. Instead of thinking about everything that was wrong in his life, he would focus on one positive action he could take each day. On the first day, he read 10 pages of a book. On the second day, he practiced a new skill. On the third day, he helped a stranger. Slowly, his world began to change. The problems were still there, but they no longer controlled his attention. That realization became the 10th turning point. Weeks passed, and Noah felt stronger than ever before, but life had one more test prepared for him. One evening, after returning home, he received terrible news. The company where he worked was reducing its employees, and Noah had lost his job. The old fear immediately returned. His heart sank, and negative thoughts rushed into his mind. You see? The voice inside him whispered, nothing has changed. You are still a failure. For several hours, Noah sat alone in darkness, listening to that voice. But then he remembered everything he had learned. He remembered the notebook, the lessons, the small victories, and the promise he had made to himself. Slowly, he stood up, looked into the mirror, and said, this is not the end of my story. At that exact moment, without fully realizing it, Noah stepped into the 11th turning point, the moment when he stopped allowing circumstances to define who he was and started choosing his own response to life's challenges. Losing his job was painful, but for the first time in his life, Noah refused to let one moment destroy his future. The next morning, instead of staying in bed and feeling sorry for himself, he opened the notebook once again. A new message waited for him. Your beliefs create your limits. Noah read the sentence several times. Suddenly, he understood something important. All his life, he had believed that he was an ordinary person with ordinary abilities. He believed that success belonged to people who were smarter, richer, or luckier than him. Those beliefs had become invisible walls around his life. They had stopped him from trying new things, meeting new people, and chasing bigger dreams. Realizing this became the 12th turning point of his journey. That same day, Noah took a piece of paper and wrote down every negative belief he had about himself. I am not talented enough. I am too shy. I will never succeed. I am not special. Looking at those sentences, he suddenly felt angry. None of them were facts. They were only stories he had repeated for years. One by one, he replaced them with new beliefs. I can improve. I can learn. I can become stronger. My future is still being written. For the first time, Noah felt as if he were breaking chains that had held him captive for years. Over the following weeks, he sent applications to different companies, learned new skills online, and forced himself to leave his comfort zone every single day. Some opportunities rejected him. Some interviews ended badly, but something inside him had changed. He no longer saw failure as proof that he was weak. He saw failure as part of growth. Then, one afternoon, while walking through the city, Noah noticed an old bookstore he had never entered before. Curious, he stepped inside and met an elderly woman arranging books on a shelf. After a long conversation, she shared a lesson that Noah would never forget. Most people wait for confidence before they act, she said softly. But confidence comes after action, not before it. Those words hit Noah like lightning. That realization became the 13th turning point. He finally understood why he had stayed stuck for so many years. He had been waiting to feel ready instead of simply starting. From that day forward, Noah made a promise to himself. He would act first and let confidence follow later. He started speaking to strangers, joining online groups, and practicing skills that once terrified him. Every small action gave him more proof that he was capable of change. Slowly, his identity began to shift. He no longer saw himself as a victim of circumstances. He started seeing himself as the creator of his future. But another lesson was waiting for him. One evening, Noah met some old friends at a cafe. Within minutes, the conversation turned negative. They complained about life, blamed other people for their failures, and laughed at anyone who dreamed of becoming successful. As Noah listened, he noticed something surprising. Their words affected his mood. The hope and motivation he had built over the last few months slowly started disappearing. Walking home that night, he opened the notebook and discovered another message waiting for him. Your environment shapes your thinking. Noah stopped in the middle of the street and looked around. He suddenly understood that thoughts do not grow in isolation. The people you spend time with, the things you watch, and the voices you listen to every day quietly shape the person you become. That understanding became the 14th turning point. The next morning, Noah made difficult decisions. He spent less time with people who constantly spread negativity. He stopped filling his mind with useless distractions and started reading books, listening to inspiring ideas, and surrounding himself with people who encouraged growth. At first, he felt lonely, but deep inside, he knew he was protecting something valuable, his future. Weeks later, something unexpected happened. Noah received an email inviting him to interview for a position at a company he admired. Months earlier, fear would have stopped him from even applying, but now he accepted the opportunity with confidence. The night before the interview, however, doubt returned once again. Lying in bed, Noah heard the old voice whispering, "What if you fail? What if you embarrass yourself? What if you are not good enough?" For a few moments, fear almost won. But then Noah sat up, looked at the notebook beside him, and smiled. Tomorrow would become the 15th and most important turning point of his entire journey, the moment that would finally reveal whether he had truly become the master of his own mind. The next morning, Noah stood in front of the office building where his interview would take place. People in expensive suits walked past him, talking confidently on their phones, and for a brief moment, the old fear returned. His heart beat faster, and his mind whispered, "You don't belong here." Months earlier, that voice would have defeated him, but now he had learned something powerful. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and remembered everything he had discovered during his journey. He remembered that thoughts create reality, that beliefs create limits, and that action creates confidence. Slowly, he opened his eyes and walked through the front doors. That simple step became the 15th and final turning point of his story. During the interview, Noah was asked difficult questions. Some answers came easily, while others forced him to think deeply. At one point, the manager asked, "What is the biggest lesson life has taught you?" Noah paused for a moment before smiling. "Life taught me that the greatest battle is not outside us, it is inside us. The moment we change our thoughts, we change our future." The room became silent. For the first time in his life, Noah was not trying to impress anyone. He was simply speaking the truth. When the interview ended, he walked outside feeling proud. Not because he knew he would get the job, but because he had become someone he could respect. For years, he had searched for success in money, praise, and other people's approval, but now he understood that real success begins in the mind. As he walked through the city streets, he noticed something strange. The world around him had not changed. The buildings were the same, the traffic was the same, the people were the same, yet everything felt different because he was different. He had spent years believing that happiness depended on circumstances, but now he knew that happiness begins with the way we think. 2 days later, Noah received an email. With trembling hands, he opened it and read the words he had dreamed of seeing. "Congratulations. We are pleased to offer you the position." A smile spread across his face, but surprisingly, the job itself was not the greatest reward. The real reward was the person he had become along the way. He remembered the young man who had once sat alone in the park, convinced that his life would never improve. That version of himself seemed like a stranger now. The notebook had taught him lessons far greater than success. It had taught him that thoughts become beliefs, beliefs become actions, actions become habits, and habits become destiny. That evening, Noah returned to the same park bench where his journey had started. The sun was setting, and the city lights were beginning to shine. He opened the notebook one final time, expecting another message, but the last page contained only a simple question: who controls your life? Noah smiled because, for the first time, he knew the answer. It was not luck. It was not fear. It was not other people's opinions. The answer was hidden inside his own mind. He closed the notebook and looked up at the sky, realizing that every person carries two voices inside them. One voice speaks of fear, doubt, and excuses. The other speaks of courage, growth, and possibility. The voice that becomes stronger is the one we choose to feed every day. From that moment forward, Noah made a promise to himself. He would protect his mind from negativity. He would choose his environment carefully. He would stop seeking approval from people who did not understand his dreams. Most importantly, he would never again underestimate the power of a single thought. Years later, whenever people asked Noah how he changed his life, he never talked about luck or talent. Instead, he shared 8 simple truths. Your thoughts create your reality. Your mind believes what you repeat. What you focus on grows. Your beliefs decide your limits. Your actions follow your thoughts. Your environment shapes your thinking. No one is coming to save you, and the person who masters his mind masters his future. If there is one lesson hidden inside this story, it is this: you do not become what you wish for. You become what you think, repeat, and do every single day. Your future is not created in one moment. It is created by thousands of small thoughts and actions that slowly shape the person you become. So, starting today, watch your thoughts, protect your mind, change the story you tell yourself, because the most powerful force in your life is not outside you. It has been inside you all along, waiting for the moment you finally decide to believe in yourself. And remember, the moment you take control of your mind is the moment you take control of your life.